My curiosity killed my dream of having a loving wife. My name is Mark Farrell. I am 28 years old and work as a mechanical engineer for T-Bolts Inc. I had just returned from a 5-day business trip up north and was now seated at the table of a private booth at one of my favorite establishments. I was going to grab a quick bite to eat before the evening crowds swarmed in here after 5 o'clock. Even though I was supposed to be getting married tomorrow, I still had a lot of work to do at the office to finalize the paperwork for the contract I was handling. As I was satisfying my hunger, out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly noticed Sandra, my fiancée Evelyn's best friend, stalking past, heading for the next cubicle. I don't really like Sandra. I don't hate her, but I don't have any warm feelings for her either. So when I saw her here, I did my best to remain inconspicuous, and I succeeded. I was about to finish my meal and get out of there when I heard Sandra talking to someone I couldn't see. "Hi, honey. How was What happened to you?" she asked in a suddenly changed, worried voice. "You look like you've been crying." This little drama suddenly piqued my interest. I decided to linger a little longer and listen to what she was talking about. I couldn't hear what she said, only some mumbling, but I could hear the part of the conversation when Sandra was talking. "Oh my God, you're right. All right, girl, talk to me. Open your heart to me, honey. You know I'll always listen to you," Sandra urged her friend. I was totally surprised by what I heard next. "I miss him so much that my heart is breaking," came a familiar voice that sounded quite depressed now. It was Evelyn. I wasn't too surprised that she missed me so much. After all, I had been gone for 5 whole days, and I had returned to town less than 24 hours before our wedding. My fiancé was very unhappy when my boss announced to me that I had to go on this business trip right before the wedding. However, I can't say we were left with much hassle with this, as the wedding itself was planned in advance. We even had a rehearsal for the ceremony before I left, and the atmosphere at the rehearsal was, alas, somewhat chilly. Not only was Evelyn upset that I was leaving her alone for a whole week before the wedding, but even the bridesmaids, her sisters, and Sandra were treating me rather surly. I begged my boss to spare me the trip, but he was adamant that I had to go. Our 6-month project was only half done, and we were already 3 weeks behind schedule. I had to get it back on track right away, or the company would take a big loss. My boss and I knew exactly what the problem was, but I had to go on this trip anyway to fix it on the spot. "Tell me more about him. I want to know everything," Sandra asked my fiancé. I was a little surprised and uncomfortable at the thought of Evelyn sharing personal information about me with her best friend. I knew that Sandra had been her closest confidant for years, but I still didn't feel good about it. I don't really discuss her virtues, much less her flaws, with my good buddies, do I? "From the moment I first saw it, my life changed," Evelyn began. "Yes, she was right about that. The same could be said about my life. As soon as I met her, I knew we were made for each other. Every time he walked into the room where I was, it seemed like no one else existed there but us, even if there were plenty of other people around. Nothing else mattered but his endless love and care for me," Evelyn continued. My fiancé's words sounded very flattering and pleasant to me, and they seemed like a reassuring sign. I often wondered if the love I felt for her was too much for Evelyn. At times, I felt that it was too one-sided and that perhaps I was scaring her away. To be honest, sometimes it took my breath away when I marveled at her beauty. However, all those worries and concerns subsided after I proposed to her and she agreed to marry me. We never went crazy in love. Often, a simple walk on the beach, hand in hand, was enough to share our feelings for each other without saying a word. And when we did talk, the simple words were always full of deep meaning. A romantic nostalgia crept into Evelyn's quiet voice. We never needed more than a few phrases to fully understand each other. We shared more feelings with each other with just a glance than other couples share in a whole year, she said rightly. True, Evelyn had always been quiet. At first, I tried too hard to fill the silence with my words. Over time, I realized that I enjoyed simply holding hands with her and sharing magical moments of nonverbal communication between two soulmates. Our relationship is not based on constant mutual declarations of undying love, but rather on the quiet understanding that it is our destiny to be together forever. And the sex. Oh, the sex was so fantastic. I heard my fiancé's dreamy voice. You know, I had good sex before him. But with him, with the depth of our love, it was a true union of two souls. Just thinking about those magical moments makes my body aching and longing to make love again, Evelyn confessed. Because that's what it was. We didn't have sex. We loved each other with every fiber of our being. It was true, Evelyn had always been easy to make love with. Her slender, supple body was just begging for tenderness, touch, and caress. It was also true for me that before I met Evelyn, I was not at all lacking in good sex. But when she and I are entwined in a loving embrace, I want to spend the rest of my life caressing her. I need to tenderly kiss every cell of Evelyn's body. And I've always dreamed of spending hours feeling the smooth, silky softness of her skin, rediscovering every exhilarating curve of her figure. What about the engagement? Come on, tell me about the day he asked you to marry him. I heard Sandra's impatient voice again. I hoped it would happen, but I didn't really care much about it. We were together, we loved each other, we cared for each other. Marriage was supposed to be just a formality, a paper confirmation of what we had known for a long time. We would be together for the rest of our lives, Evelyn answered her friend. But he asked me if I would marry him. Yeah, I didn't expect it, and I was speechless. I just didn't know what to say, you know? As soon as he asked me that question, I was overcome with emotion. It took me a while to come to my senses and find my voice, Evelyn said. Hearing those words from the next stall reminded me of how incredibly nervous I had been that day. I also remembered that what had happened that day had almost killed me. I'd always had a problem with uncertainty about Evelyn, uncertainty about where our otherwise excellent relationship was headed. I myself firmly knew I wanted her to be my wife, but I wasn't sure what she herself thought about marriage. Evelyn's inherent shyness and reticence made it difficult for me to understand her intentions in this important matter. She always answered evasively when I broached the subject. The night I proposed to her, we first had dinner at our favorite restaurant and then went back to her house. I figured that if my proposal was rejected, I could just pick up and say the right words, maintain a semblance of self-respect, and walk away. And by the time I got home, at worst, I could always get drunk as hell. When I knelt down in front of her, Evelyn stared at me with the classic deer in the headlights stare. It wasn't a good start, but this time, I was determined to ask her to marry me. As if petrified, she just stood in front of me, saying nothing but looking down at me. I died many times as those endless, unbearably agonizing seconds of silence stretched on. My vision blurred as tears swelled in my eyes and then rolled down my cheeks, and I was ready to get up. I was about to tell Evelyn that she didn't have to answer right away, that she could take her time. Now I just wanted to leave as quickly as possible. The curious thing was that tears were streaming from her eyes, too. At last, as if she had overcome herself, she spoke, and, amazingly enough, her first words were that my proposal had come as a complete surprise to her. What a twist, I thought at the time. But then she did say yes to me. We hugged, and our tears mingled into tears of joy. When I remembered now all these vicissitudes, my hand reached for the small black box in my pocket. I had stopped by and picked up the engagement ring on the way back from the airport. It was marvelously elegant and beautiful. I know this is still very painful for you, Sandra said sympathetically. But tell me about the trip. I didn't want him to go and leave me alone. But he had no choice. I knew it was only for a few days, but I didn't want to be separated from him even for a few hours, Evelyn said in a broken voice. And then she couldn't take it anymore and cried. I remembered that she had been very emotional when I had gone on the business trip last week, but I had no idea that she had taken it so hard. From now on, whether it's a deadline or not, I will not let any urgent business come between me and Evelyn, I vowed to myself. When he left, I was half dead inside. My world would have been empty and meaningless until he came back, Evelyn continued, pulling herself together a bit. All day and all night, I thought only of him, wanting to feel his touch, to hear his voice, to be near him and make me whole again. I didn't realize that his absence could hurt so much until he left, Evelyn said with difficulty, tears welling up again. It was hard for me too, and Evelyn had been on my mind the whole time I'd been on this damn business trip. It was very hard for me to concentrate when every moment of my days away from her was filled with images of my fiancée. No amount of work was worth damaging my love for Evelyn. Every night I was myself, thinking about how I should be by her side instead of sitting like an owl alone in a motel room hundreds of miles away from my fiancé. From my seat, I could hear Evelyn still crying while Sandra mumbled some soothing words. Finally, Evelyn spoke again. It was all my fault. I shouldn't have talked him into coming back that night, she said in a stricken voice. What? I thought, wrinkling my forehead in confusion. No, it's okay, baby. It wasn't your fault, Sandra argued vehemently. No, it was my fault, my fiancé repeated stubbornly. There was a hurricane warning on the TV and on the phone, but I contacted him and convinced him to come back that night. If he had stayed there and waited out the day, he wouldn't have had to drive back in such terrible conditions. It was me. I killed him, exclaimed the sobbing Evelyn with despair in her voice. Why? I flew in, and the weather was very fine all the time, and I'm sure I'm not a dead man. I could hardly restrain myself from shouting these words from my stall. Honey, you're not responsible for Brad's death, Sandra said with soothing insistence. Brad? I was taken aback. What the hell, Brad? He wanted to be with you as much as you wanted him to always be there for you, Sandra added, and then, after a pause, asked, Have you told Mark about this? No, it still hurts too much for me. I just can't tell him, I heard Evelyn's frustrated voice. I still can't believe you're marrying Mark. I told you that you're still not over Brad. It's only been 2 years. Do you even love the guy? He's not half the man Brad was to me. Even though I didn't know him that well, unlike you, Sandra grumbled. God, once you met him, I almost lost touch with you. I only met him a few times, but I can tell you honestly, Evelyn, Mark is a far cry from Brad. How can you marry this guy if Brad is still the love of your life? My fiancé's best friend asked. Well, Mark is very sweet and caring. I know he loves me very much. Look, I need this. I really do. I know I could learn to love him. I heard Evelyn's voice stuttering. And I also know that he would be a wonderful father, a reliable husband, and a good lover. When I'm with him, I almost forget about Brad. Mark. He can bring balance back into my life, she said in a broken voice. And then she sobbed again. Who are you kidding, Evelyn? Sandra said in an unconvinced tone. I'm not saying that you're wrong about Mark, but you should have waited a little longer. Evelyn spent the next few minutes in Sandra's arms, continuing to sob and cry on her shoulder. After a while, a waitress approached their booth. She placed a small black box and a note on the table. The girl in the white apron looked at Evelyn and said, Someone left this for you. Evelyn took the folded-in half-leaf, unfolded it, and read what was written there. Oh, no! She cried out and sobbed like she had never cried before. Sandra took the note that had fallen out of her friend's hands and read a few short lines. Evelyn, I'm so sorry I can't be Brad. I'm just an ordinary living person with all my flaws. Goodbye, and take care of yourself, really. Mark. Inside the box glistened an engagement ring. As the saying goes, curiosity killed the cat, but in this case it killed something else. My curiosity killed my dream of having a loving wife. I went back to work that day to fill out and turn in my business trip reports. And the next morning, the day of my intended but never consummated wedding, I was on a plane back north. My project had to be completed on time, even if I had to fire everyone and work alone. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.